Thank you, Bill, for that. Now we're going to have a question and answer session from the audience. So we have mics in the aisles. If anyone wants to go to the aisles, and we'll have a couple of minutes for question and answer.
This is always the hard moment.
Hello. My name is Roland Pino. I work at ISD, and we have a big focus on innovation, of course. And short of having you over to speak to our suppliers and give them the message, how would you suggest that we get them out of the mindset, the traditional design mindset, and into this cradle-to-cradle innovative mindset?
Well, it would seem to me that if I mean, we could work together on this very simply. If Walmart basically said, you know, that it wants the way it wants other things in terms of price and performance, that it wants a cradle-to-cradle response from a supplier, the tools are all available now. The fact that we have the deep database in chemicals means that any company that wants to supply Walmart with a safe, healthy product that's either biological or technical nutrient just simply has to say that that's what they want, and we can service them. So I think it's important to understand that this is when Candace said it was slightly contrarian, the idea that we're looking at effectiveness as well as efficiency is not common. What we typically find in the companies that we work with in the supply chains is that people will tend to move toward efficiency because it's the simplest thing to do, and not put themselves in a design mind where they're actually imagining what the other opportunities are. And so I think if you can do anything is put people into a design frame of mind and give them the ultimate goals. But you're doing that. I mean, the fact that you're calling for 100% renewable power, that's not a zero goal. That's not saying I'm going to zero nukes and coal or something like that. You're saying we're going 100%. That's not an efficiency statement. That's an effectiveness statement. We can say the same thing about drinking water. We can say the same thing about social fairness and material safety and health. So I think you just add material safety and health to the existing Walmart goals, to zero waste and so on, and you've got a slam dunk that's a global leadership opportunity, because there are a lot of people doing efficiency, which is a great thing. But there are very few global opportunities for effectiveness. If you took the protocols that we develop for textiles alone and the chemicals that we have and the positive list of dyes, mordants, and auxiliaries and toxin-free treatments, and took those to your textile suppliers and basically said, we want everything that comes into Walmart to be safe enough for our grandchildren to suck on it and not get something, problematic, or we want it to be, the highest quality in the world, but no price change, and so on and so forth. These are the kinds of things you can now do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Hi, Bill. My question is, you showed a lot of products up there, and if things need to be redesigned, doesn't by its very nature make it more expensive? I mean, this is a low-cost retailer,
right?
And there's a kind of a mission to democratize these good things. But is there a trade-off almost? I mean, you mentioned the Rouge, but I'd be interested in your thoughts on the actual products themselves.
What we found is the opposite has occurred. I think you're absolutely right. The first thing that comes to mind is that you're adding something, and therefore it has additional cost. What you're adding is intelligence, not money. If we take that textile, for example, it reduced the cost of making that textile in Switzerland by 20%. And the reason it reduced the cost was there were some ironic parts of it. One was that the regulations were minimized, because all of a sudden materials that used to have to be stored in special rooms and people got paid extra for hazardous waste handling were no longer in the mix. So all of a sudden they're not storing hazardous materials. They're not having to fill out paperwork for that. And one of the beautiful stories is that the Swiss inspectors who came to test the water coming out of the mill after the process thought their equipment had broken because they couldn't find things they expected to find in the wastewater of a textile mill. And it turned out that they weren't being put there in the first place by design. So all of a sudden what you've done is you've reduced the regulatory burden on a product as well, because it means that these products will meet any global standard. One of the critical things that we heard earlier, I think, from Mike in terms of the fact that sustainability will represent leadership is that efficiency has been the thing that managers can do to save money and produce the kinds of results you've seen. But these are the kinds of things that any good business person should be doing. It would be silly not to pick up the waste that's on the factory floor. What's unique about taking the positive approach is that the redesign means you have a whole new, not minimized chemicals list, but an optimized chemicals list, which eliminates regulation or allows you to be competing in any market in the world because you meet or exceed any regulation. I think that's a really key cost saver. As we see the REACH legislation and the RoHS legislations coming out of Europe, which are very specific around toxins, what we find is all the products that we work on all meet or exceed all the standards. So there's no having to have one standard in one place, another standard in another place. You could just simply have the Walmart standard be the global sine qua non standard for highest quality product at the lowest possible price.
Over there in the corner.
Bill?
Yeah.
I'm an architect just like yourself. I'm sure you've been inside our Walmart stores a number of times. Hopefully you bought something. What do you see as from an architecture standpoint as one of our key opportunities to improve our buildings?
Well, I'm going to tell a story that comes from here in this building 17 years ago. When I came in, and let me get the names right, it was David Glass and Bill Fields and people like that. We were going into the meeting about the Lawrence store. And the team had all been working together. We put daylight in it. We had sustainably harvested wood, low VOCs, ice storage. We were very excited about some of the things we had had a chance to look at. And one of the things we had designed into the store was the ability to convert the store to housing in the future. We had laid it out so that all the blocks were at sill height for windows and things like that. And as I was going into the meeting, I said, well, this is going to be fun. We're going to get to talk about all these things. They said, you can talk about everything you want to, but whatever you do, don't mention the convert to housing in the future thing, because it's going to just throw everything off, because it doesn't have a payback that we can assign to it quickly. So we get to the presentation, and we're with this level with the executives, and I get very enthusiastic, and all of a sudden I'm going in, the daylight does this, and the paint does that, but the one thing I'm really excited about, everybody's going, oh no, he's going to say it. And I said, I'm really excited. This building is convertible to housing in the future. And you had a new head of real estate at the time, and he was sitting quietly, and everybody sort of looked at him, wondering what he was going to say, and he goes, that's fantastic. I think that Walmarts, as physical objects, could be, within the cost parameters of delivering on the short term, seen as long-term physical assets of communities. And really we should go ahead and run scenarios out that say, as you leave a store behind, it has another life. I think that would be a really great exercise to bring to the design. It doesn't have to affect the price or the delivery of the current requirements, but it could yield an incredible sensibility to the store, which would be unusual.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
My name is Ryan Cryer. I'm in ISD Development Services team. And I have two questions, one for you and one for a gentleman earlier. With the illustration where you had the rooftop that was environmentally sound with the gravel, are you putting those up in hurricane-prone places? Because the gravel is known to be projectiles during high winds and can do major damage. My other question is for the previous gentleman about phosphates in detergent. I think Coca-Cola has phosphates too. Is there anything toward Coca-Cola phosphates or phosphorus being cleaned up? Thank you.
On phosphates, I think what you're doing is fantastic. I'll come back to the roof question. It's really critical. But the other thing you should look at and encourage in communities is there's a new technology out of British Columbia called Ostara, which can effectively take out the phosphates from sewage and things like that and produce struvite, which is a mineral concoction crystal that essentially is a long-term fertilizer, very slow release, and could help solve a lot of these pollution problems that we saw in Argentina. Because it would be slow-release fertilizer. And so all of a sudden our sewage treatment plants become really effective fertilizer factories. And I think that's the kind of thing that we really ought to be looking really hard at. So to deal with it, we could talk about the phosphate question specifically, but I think getting it out in the first place of detergents is an obvious good efficiency strategy. But there are also some effectiveness strategies about turning it into fertilizer in the right way for the right uses, because we do need fertilizer. So that's one thing. As far as putting these kind of green roofs on in hurricane zones, basically the approach we're taking to roofs is that they should be photosynthetic. See, think about a tree as a design. If I asked you all to be designers, and this gets to that earlier question about what frame of mind do we have, think about how sophisticated humans are with design. It took us 5,000 years to put wheels on our luggage. We're not that smart. If you think about a tree as a design, here's this thing that makes oxygen, sequesters carbon, fixes nitrogen, distills water, provides habitat for hundreds of species, accrues solar energy as fuel, makes complex sugars in food, creates microclimates, changes colors, and self-replicates. I mean, how many buildings made oxygen lately, right? Well, there's one that makes oxygen. So it's photosynthetic. So I think the way we look at buildings is just like you are. They should either be making energy or they should be making oxygen or both. And so in hurricane-prone areas where you might worry about something like this, I would either go with what we call an intensive green roof, which is the thick, heavy one. But it wouldn't make sense in a Walmart because it wouldn't be practical. It's too heavy. I would go with photovoltaics in hurricane zones. Very focused on that. Ballasted.
We're going to take the final question.
It's a comment and two short questions. I'm Jay Shuey, also from ISD. The comment is about redoing of our stores as homes, etc. My daughter is going in the mining field. She wants to be a mining architect, and featuring on the reclamation portion of a mine after it's been closed, and how to turn that into usable housing and stuff. And it's a very big win for the mining industry because it helps their reputation. And the same way in here at Walmart, we can look at it the same way because we go into a lot of small towns and we're trying to take it over. Well, we've already got a plan for leaving the store or moving to another place if we actually grow in your location. So that's something that will help enhance our reputation as well as make it easier for the units to sell for the real estate manager. Now, as far as the questions, as a consumer, do I have access to that database that you had talked about for the companies? So I could see what chemicals are out there, and then if I could take a look at what's in there.
Okay. The status of the database right now is we're in process. We're working. I'm on my way to Davos, where I'll be meeting with Nike, and what we're talking about is what's called the Creative Commons, and the idea is that people would be in a position to release their data in a safe way into the world at large. And so since we work with Nike very closely on developing their chemicals for their shoes, and they've since hired full-time chemists and have developed a lot of protocols, what we're looking at is the idea of how do you release information in a way that's safe for our clients, because we have a lot of secrecy agreements in the chemical industry. See, typically what has happened is we end up having secrecy agreements to find out what's in the dyes and what's in the mordants and so on, because the customer, in the case of Walmart, you may not really actually know everything that is in every supplier's product, but what you want to know is that it's safe and healthy. And the suppliers may have secrecy agreements because they want to protect their trade data from competition and things like that. So there's a lot of feathered out information on this, but essentially what we're going to do is bring the databases out and put them into a Creative Commons kind of situation where people will be able to get access to them and be able to use them around the world. And I think it'll be a revolutionary moment when anyone, anywhere can get online and ask questions about chemicals and products. And that's the goal.
Excellent. The second part of the
We're
question.
going to have to
really quick.
move on
Really
to
quick.
the next.
Can I get your card? Is it possible to get a copy of your presentation?
Sure, you can get it from
That's fine. We'll make that
anybody.
available.
Sure.
Thank you again, Bill.
You're welcome.